Greetings, fellow men. Servus Männer. It's Red Pill Germany again, and today I want to talk a little bit about music, a little lighter topic for a Sunday maybe, but not that light because we are going to talk about heavy metal music. Now, that is, of course, a very broad topic, and I've been listening to heavy metal music since the late 80s, basically, and already back then I noticed that it is mostly boys or men who are into that music. And when you go to live shows, when I went in the 90s then to some live shows, I saw that, well, there were some women, but they were more of the heavier kind, if you know what I mean. And also in the 80s, there was a lot of discussion about heavy metal music in the mainstream media, a lot of controversy, so satanic messages, and heavy metal makes our children dumb, aggressive, and stupid. So maybe a lot of people think that heavy metal fans are typically like Beavis and Butthead, these two cartoon characters of that MTV show back then. So I will talk about this another time, but the opposite is actually true. Heavy metal fans are really smart and are actually having a pressure valve for their aggression and their frustration, and they are more balanced and more happy and also successful in later life, I guess. So I didn't need any Ritalin back then in the 80s because I had heavy metal music and mosh pits, basically. So I want to talk especially about the band Sabaton because I really like the album that they released last year, The Last Stand. And I want to really introduce that band to you if you don't know it already. And I also will talk about some older bands. So a little trigger warning at the beginning, okay? So I listened to that music for over 2 decades and I go to live shows, but I am not a stalker and I am not a fanboy. So I do not read all the interviews. I do not know all the trivia or what band member played bass guitar in 1995. I have no idea, okay? So if I misrepresent something or if I make a mistake, please kindly correct me in the comments below, but I'm not doing this out of willful ignorance, okay? So you probably all have noticed by now, and this is often a topic also in the manosphere and in MGTOW circles, that our media, our mainstream movie industry, for example, but also music, is highly feminized these days. And SJW, leftist ideology, is basically permeating everything. You cannot just make an action movie without 50% of the time dealing with some sob story. If he knows that she in fact loves him, I don't care about that. I want to see explosions, right? And when we look at the movie industry, you also have either some divas who sing about how empowered and strong they are and that all men are shit and they don't need them, or you have some mangina young men who pour their hearts out and sing about how they want to sacrifice for the woman they love. So this is really not masculine music that we hear these days, and I think that heavy metal music, and especially death metal and power metal, thrash metal, these are really masculine styles of music. And if you hear a double bass and a hard guitar riff, there is nothing feminine about it really. For young men or for men in general, I think heavy metal is the right music. Of course, it's a question of taste, but I think we can all agree that there is no feminine energy in power metal songs, I guess. It is pure masculine energy. And if you have ever been in a mosh pit, you probably know that this is what real men or boys, wild boys actually, when they're younger, what they like to do, right? And this is how you learn also how to control your aggression. Because, I mean, you want to hurt the other person maybe a little bit, or you want to dance wildly, but you don't want to put anyone into a hospital, right? And if someone falls or breaks a nose or something, people kind of shield him from others who would then crash into him or so, fall over him or something. So I really learned how to take care of others and how to channel my aggression and my male energy actually in pogo or mosh pits. I also listen to punk music later on, hardcore punk. I really love that stuff. But let's stay with the 80s a little bit longer now. So I remember I really loved Iron Maiden, and at the same time I also listened to some Manowar songs. A friend of mine introduced me to the band Manowar, and Manowar is really, I mean, I have to give them really some respect for that throughout the years. they state what we say in Germany, schmerzfrei. That means they are not feeling any pain, obviously. I mean, no matter how cringeworthy, and that word was not around back then probably, their covers look like, they're so over the top, like caricatures, but they're really consistent with that, yeah? So their fans are calling themselves the Army of Immortals, and they have the sign of the hammer and all that stuff, and their songs are like Conan the Barbarian, basically, riding with your brothers and wielding your battle axe and killing your enemies and all that stuff. It is really like a caricature, right? It is really like a Conan the Barbarian, and people love it. It's about drinking beer, about camaraderie, and about, well, killing a lot of people actually. And this they do for a long time already, and they have fans in every country, and a really loyal fan base. And back then there was an interview on MTV, I think, and I don't know, I think it was one of the fan club people, and he was asked, what is important for the future? And he said patriarchy and masculinity. And I think I was 15 at that time, and I thought, wait a minute, that doesn't sound like the future. That sounds like the past, But maybe this guy knew something that I didn't know, right? So, but what can be very clearly stated is that when everything becomes PC, when everything becomes tone policed by some nanny or by the nanny state, actually. There is a need, there is a demand for masculine energy, for this kind of stuff, as grotesque and caricature-like as it may be. But there is a demand, and on the free market, these demands will be satisfied. And bands like Manowar, they fulfill this function, that men just want to get together, they want to sing these battle hymns, and they want to drink beer and have a good time, right? And women are not really appearing in these songs, but maybe as sex slaves or something like that, right? So it's really like Stone Age, Conan the Barbarian kind of stuff, right? Now, of course, at these concerts, there are also women, as I said, and women are a minority. Many of them are yeah, man-like or very heavy, and there are very, very few attractive women there, and they're mostly there with their husbands or their boyfriends, and they probably have the alpha cool guy as a boyfriend or husband, and they go to this concert as a female chameleon, or to show that they're cool with that. And some of them are actually also groupies who want to get their boobs signed by one of the band members, of course. Now the band Sabaton. I mean, they are a newer band, and they are not really as extreme Conan-like as Manowar was, but they have a theme. They make songs about historic events, but especially about war, about hero stories, and important battles. So this is the overarching theme of their music. They make a lot of songs about World War One and Two, about the Vietnam War, about medieval warfare, about ancient Greece, and so on and so on. So a lot of songs about war, actually exclusively about war, except for the older stuff maybe. And as women do not really fight in wars, except for a couple of instances maybe, all these songs are more or less about men. And of course, there is one prominent exception that comes to my mind at least, and this is the song Night Witches, which is about Soviet female pilots who fought against the Wehrmacht on the Eastern Front. The song is called Night Witches. Actually a very good song, but this is a song that is really specifically about women in the Soviet army. Also a really good song, but predominantly their songs are about male virtues, or, well, it is actually self-sacrifice also, but, well, it is masculine, right? And the last album that was released in 2016 is about a last stand. So really desperate battles where you are really outnumbered and you're fighting against all odds. Some examples here are the siege of Vienna, when Vienna was under siege by the Ottoman Turks, and at the last moment the Polish winged hussars intervened and delivered the city from a certain death. Yeah, I should really say that this band has a lot of followers in Poland, and this is also due to the first song that I've actually heard of them. A friend of mine, old school friend, who is a Romanian German, forwarded the link to me, and he said, "Wow, this song is so awesome! You have to listen to that." And it is called 40 to 1, a very simple title, and the song is about the Battle of Wisna, where just a couple of hundred of Polish soldiers actually held the line for a very long time against an overpowering German Wehrmacht force. Hence the title 40 to 1. That is the ratio of Wehrmacht to Polish soldiers here. And this battle is also referred to as the Polish Thermopylae, so the hot gates of Poland, as an analogy to the 300 Spartans that delayed the Persian army at the hot gates. And then there is the song that also gave the whole album its title, the Last Stand, and it is about the Swiss guards who sacrificed themselves in order to allow the Pope to escape into a castle, while Rome was actually under siege or actually being sacked by marauding German Landsknechte. Yeah, so it was an army that the Holy Roman Empire set up, and it was too big actually for his coffers, and so he ran out of money, and then leadership broke down, and the German army actually forced the leader to lead them against Rome then, because this is where they could get their pay when they would sack Rome, and that's what they did. So this was 1527, and I only can remember this date because it is in the song. So this is one useful function of Sabaton songs. You can remember some historical dates maybe. And another very cool thing for me personally about Sabaton is when I listen to a new song, I always look up the historical event that this song, the lyrics of the song actually are about. And some of them I haven't even heard about, because our history books these days, they are so selective, you know. We always hear about conferences and stuff in history, you know, but decisive battles or stuff that is not PC anymore these days, yeah, like the Siege of Vienna or the Battle of Lepanto and the Battle of Tours, all that stuff. I didn't hear about that in my history lessons actually. So Sabaton makes songs about these important events, and then you can look it up, and then you know more about European history or world history for that matter. Now there are many other cool stories and cool songs worked into this album. For example, when the Serbian army tried to defend Belgrade against the Imperial German army in the First World War, or the defense of Rorke's Drift in 1879 that I actually didn't know about before, in the Anglo-Zulu War, when British riflemen held the line against a gigantic force of Zulu warriors. So Sabaton is also, just like Manowar, a really successful band. Lots of fans all around the world. All their concerts are sold out or nearly sold out, and economically very successful. It just seems that they really know what the market wants, and by market I mean, of course, the people. They sense that there is a demand, because there is a shortage of these kind of stories, of these kinds of narratives, where there is just no romantic side story, or it's not about women, it's just about events, historical events and men. And also military history, right? That's another topic. I mean, I don't know a lot of women who are into military history or who care about the fate of nations. Now, as you can imagine, Sabaton is criticized quite heavily by the Swedish press, but also by the press in general, as being dog whistling or being nationalistic or something. But they just seem to have a sense for what is moving people's minds. And maybe this year it is a last stand against a foreign foe. And they were also really criticized for their album Carolus Rex, which is about Swedish Empire or Swedish history in general, the album, and also about Gustav Adolf, for example, yeah, who fought in Germany through the 30 Years' War here, when the Protestants fought against the Catholics. And the cool thing about that album is that the album exists in Swedish language and also in English. And in Europe, people actually prefer the Swedish version. And me also, I love these songs in Swedish. It just sounds really awesome. And by this, they tell the story of their people in their own language. This is truly European culture, what you can hear here in this album. I really love it. So I don't really know what the musicians said themselves in interviews, and I don't really care because my left-wing German teacher, my literature teacher, once told me that once a work of art is out there, is published, everyone can interpret it, and it doesn't matter what the artist tried to say with it. There is no official interpretation. It is free for interpretation, right? And when I look at the song title and when I read about the history, the historic events, the circumstances that are behind the lyrics of the songs, I can't help but wonder what they are trying to say with that, actually, or why they put exactly these events into their latest album in 2016. So maybe they know a lot about psychology. Yeah, at least this is my take on the whole affair. Of course, me as a German, I also like their songs about the Ghost Division or about the Wehrmacht. These are really hot topics that not a lot of other bands would dare to make songs about, but Sabaton is really courageous here, and they don't care who they piss off, it seems. Now, I mostly listen to Sabaton when there are no good MGTOW or Manosphere videos or podcasts new on YouTube, and I want to play some video games like Path of Exile or some Urban Terror or something like that. Then I normally have Sabaton or Halloween, a German power metal band from the 80s, or actually some Manowar on, or some other medieval music, classical music, old European dances maybe, but something that is going forward, that is positive and upbeat and heavy. So, and in case if you're wondering, the name of the band, Sabaton, means actually an armored gauntlet. A fist for fight, right? As the first album says, fist for fight. So just in case you're wondering where the name comes from, a very fitting name, I think. So it doesn't really matter if you like heavy metal or not, but it is really obvious to me at least when you follow the mainstream media discourse about heavy metal and young boys, or about men, masculinity in general. There are so many parallels, really so many parallels, and I will follow that in the news, of course, and of course I will continue listening to heavy metal when I'm angry or when I'm happy, also then, right? So I hope you enjoy your Sunday evening, and hail and kill, Kameraden!